Hello everyone, it's time for another deck profile, post booster set 7 for Overdress, this time for the Flagburg Dragon deck. Yes, this is my only Stoicheia deck, and I have not done a deck profile on this, but I did build a deck since it was first introduced. But I didn't do a deck profile because every deck was going to look the same, unless if you're playing the Zorga version with the order card. But my version does not play that, because I like to play pure archetype. But anyway, how do I feel about the deck? It's basically similar to Aqua Force, and I really like Aqua Force playstyle and aesthetic. That's why I actually built the deck in the first place. And Flagburg Dragon looks like Maelstrom, and in fact it's supposed to be in Maelstrom's descendant based on my knowledge of the lore. So that's why it looks like Maelstrom, and I really like the Battleship Dragon theme that it provides compared to what it was 5,000 years back with Maelstrom. It just looks awesome. I like the concept of it, and I already like Aqua Force aesthetic as it was, so Flagburg was going to interest me because of its design, and because with Aqua Force playstyle, I already got interested. So yeah, now to the deck itself, and to point out the big weakness of the deck, and it's similar to Aqua Force where it is heavily reliant on rear guards. Obviously, Aqua Force needs rear guards, so if this deck doesn't have rear guards, you're not going to be able to make the attacks because your Vanguard is usually going to be attacking last based on Aqua Force logic, but with new cards and all that, Flagburg no longer needs to be the last attack, and in fact your goal is to make sure Flagburg gets the 5th attack, as it is going to be at full power and you want to be doing that every single time. Because one thing about Flagburg compared to Maelstrom, because Maelstrom Descendant, is that Flagburg does have a similar skill to Maelstrom, where it has to retire, draw plus guard restrict, but it bases on how many times it attacked during the turn. And you want to make sure you reach the 5th one, because that's going to be full power Flag. Now that I explained the goal, the second weakness of the deck is a bit on the resources. Mainly on the early game more so than anything. You do use quite a bit of Counterblast and Soul Blast, but thanks to set 7, it does fixes some of the Counterblast issues based on how I've been playing the deck. Soul can be an issue sometimes, but overall not as big as it used to be. But now to the deck profile itself. We start off with the Ride deck, and because I am playing archetype specific, I'm obviously playing the Ride line with Flagburg with Officer Cadet Charios, and then we got In-Road Shooter, in which when you ride it upon Assailant's Assault, you call it to rear guard, basically like a Forerunner. And yeah, it is okay, especially with the second skill, where if your Vanguard is Flagburg Dragon or Assailant Assault, it gets intercept and plus 2k power. So it's fine, it's there, you can use it for another early game attack, why not? In which we go to Assailant's Assault. So its skill is, when this unit is rode upon, you can Soul Blast one card that is not itself and call it to rear guard. But if you have a Flagburg in your hand or In-Road Shooter in your hand, you can reveal that instead. So you basically get another Forerunner card, kind of, with a restriction. But this one's actually really good with the rear guard because of its skill where once per turn when your rear guard attacks the Vanguard, you can counterblast one if your Vanguard is Flagburg to stand this card. So basically another rear guard attacks after when this card already attacked, and then you just restand it. So it just gives you another attack right there. It's helpful, and I have used it sometimes. The only thing I don't like is that when this unit is rode upon restriction. If it's just Soul, it's fine. But other than that, the rearguard skill has come up quite often, and the reveal for Flagburg is not too hard. I have been drawing all my Flagburgs really quickly, so it should be fine. And now we go to Flagship Dragon Flagburg Dragon. For a main grade 3, it only has one skill. And its one skill is that when this card attacks, Counterblast 1, perform all the following abilities based on how many battles that it performed this turn. So if it's the 3rd attack, you draw a card. If it's the 4th attack, your opponent chooses 2 of their rear guards and retire it. Literally Maelstrom right there. And continue to Maelstrom stuff. If it's the 5th or more attack, until the end of battle, it gets plus 10k power, and your opponent must call 3 cards of the Guardian to guard this card's attack. So as you can tell, if you go 3rd or 4th attack, this unit will lack power. But because it's been so much easier to get the 5th attack much more recent and still have one more rearguard attack, that hasn't been much of an issue as much. So getting the 5th attack 23k with a guard restrict of 3 cards and drawing a card and 2 retires every turn, that's pretty good. And reaching that number hasn't been entirely too difficult. So yeah, Flagburg basically Maelstrom Descendant, and I just like its design. And for one Counterblast to perform all that stuff, that's pretty nice. And now to the main deck itself. We obviously need to go for Persona Ride, so 3 more copies, and because it's Aqua Force stuff, small pokes, so you want more power anyway. Next, for one of the most important cards and probably the best card of the deck is Inlet Pulse Dragon. So at the end of battle this card attacked a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. If it's the first battle of the turn and your Vanguard is Flagburg, Soul Blast 1, stand this unit. Freestanding rearguard on first attack, which of course will give you a second attack right there. And that's obviously going to build up your attack number, so that's already no reason not to run 4. But what's better is the second skill where at the end of your turn, if you perform at least 4 attacks this turn, you can put this to Soul and draw a card. So it also refunds Soul and lets you draw more cards. That is just really good, and it fixes one of the problems of Flagburg, because in general, many Stoicheia decks uses Soul, and that includes this one, but that skill literally fixes part of its Soul problem. Probably not in the early game, but once you get this card out, you're gonna not really have much of a Soul problem. And it's also multi-attack. And it's also a multi-attack card, and it's 13k base, so meaning it could hit Vanguards on its own. Next, for a promo, and this is a really good one that you need to run in Flagburg, is Shelling Cannon Dragon. So in the back row center rearguard, at the beginning of your battle phase and your Vanguard is Flagburg, you can counterblast 1. During the turn, it can attack from the back row and it gets plus 10k. So right behind Flagburg Dragon, it can perform another attack right there. So meaning right behind Flagburg Dragon, it can perform an attack. That's very important because usually back in Ruling Rise, back rows doesn't do attacks. This basically gives you an option for a 6 attack right there. And it does fixes one of the problems with Flagburg being the last attack. Now, with this card, you no longer really have that problem as long as you have it. The thing is, sometimes the 4th copy can be a brick, hence why I cut it down to 3. But it is a card that you want to see as soon as you can, but you draw a lot, so that shouldn't be a problem. But the second skill, if you need to use it, back row center rearguard, you can move this card between rows during your main phase. So basically you can move it side to side and up and down after that. It's there if you need it because sometimes you just don't have the counterblast to perform it. But like I said, because of a specific new card, the counterblast hasn't been as much of an issue as of recently based on my experience. Maybe a little bit at the early game, but for the most part, counterblast has not been much of an issue. Either way, this is a really good card to use. So that's it for the grade 3 lineup. To the grade 2 lineup, first off, 2 Assaidant's Assault. Of course, I already explained it during the ride line. It's just there. It gives you more multi-attack, and sometimes you want to use multi-attack with Counterblast rather than Soul Blast. Because you're going to be performing Soul Blast with this new card as well. Tier Knight Oryx. So Oryx, at the end of battle that this card attacked the Vanguard and it's the second battle and your Vanguard Flagburg is standing, you can Soul Blast 1, stand this unit plus 5k. So basically you boost this unit for 18k attack, restand it for a 15k attack, which is very helpful. The thing is, this card causes Soul Blast as well, and as you can tell, Inlet Pulse also uses Soul Blast. And I did say early game does have some troubles with the Soul problem, but later on, usually not. Obviously, it's just really good because it's for more multi-attack. And in later game-wise, basically turn 4 onwards, Soul hasn't been too much of an issue, and Counterblast has been more of an issue, so you kind of want to use this instead. And it's better than Assaidant's Assault in a way because you could at least get 2 attacks that could hit the Vanguard compared to Assaidant's Assault where it has no extra power. And then finally, for emergency purposes, I play the Blooming Petal. I can't pronounce the name. When placed on rearguard, if you have no Soul, you can Soul Charge 2. It's just there just in case. So that's it for the grade 2 lineup. For the grade 1 lineup, Prize Trident. This fixes issues as well, because when your other unit is attacking, if it's the 5th battle of the turn, usually Flagburg, you can put this to Soul and countercharge 1. Fixes Soul and countercharge. And this is obviously the deck that will be committing 5 attacks, because Flagburg Dragon already wants that 5th attack, and you will get the 6th one, so yeah, you do need this card for resources, and this card obviously fixes a lot of problems. Luckily, you don't use resources absurdly too fast, so at least drawing this like once every 2 turns isn't entirely too bad. And then I run 4 copies of Performing Petal Diantha. Diantha, on place from hand, and your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1, choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop zone and call it to rearguard. You're mainly going to use it on that turn anyway. It's just there to re-get some units, and obviously because it can call another unit and itself is a still unit, you basically get another attack right there if you need it. Especially for the second skill where it could be a 13k beater. If you have 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards, this card gets us 5k. So it could be a 13k beater if needed, which does happen. But overall, it just calls more units, and it can even be Inlet Pulse Dragon, which is basically the most important card of the deck. And then finally, 4 PGs. Unfortunately, I don't have enough of the Blitz Order PG, so it's going to be regular PGs, but fine either way. And now finally for the trigger lineup. Over trigger, nothing changes there. 8 crits. Because your Vanguard is going to be doing basically the last attack, fronts are not great. You just run draws, and besides, you want those resources anyway. And finally, 4 heals, 2 of them being counter heals. So that's it for this deck profile on my Flagburg Dragon deck. What do you guys think of it? What other changes would you make, or what other recommendations? I am going to stay in Archetype, so I'm not playing the Zorga engine. Yes, I do get the point of the Zorga engine, Soul Blast, the Inlet Pulse, to recall it, but I'm the guy who likes to play pure Archetype, and also I don't really like putting the Order card in when you got the Antic that can do pricks, that can do basically exactly the same thing. But overall, this deck has been working extremely really well. Recovering resources hasn't been much of an issue. Against some retired decks, maybe a few troubles. Not too much troubles, other than maybe Gravidia. But other than that, it has been working really well. The new Tier Knight definitely really helped out a lot. You got so many multi-attack options. We finally got this promo card with the sneak preview for some reason. But that promo card is very essential for the 6 attack. This actually saved the deck by a lot. This is just fine support, but this card actually helped out the deck a lot because it performed the 6 attack for Flagburg, which is what it desperately needed. And Inlet Pulse is just Inlet Pulse. Inlet Pulse is just really good. But overall, I enjoy the deck. I like the aesthetic because Aqua Force and Aqua Force Descendants here. And also I like the Aqua Force playstyle overall, so I was already getting into playing the deck. And this is my first Stoicheia deck, and I have no regrets ever playing it. But that's it for this, and see you all next time.